We're back on Queen c2 against the Nimzo Indian, and I want to show you a couple more gambit ideas against this move, which I think are completely justified because of White's poor development on the king side. It's d5 again, and this time, instead of a3, which we considered in the last clip, pawn takes pawn, which is, again, a very popular move that's about the same as a3, but played just as often. Now the normal move here is to play pawn takes pawn. Or queen takes pawn is also possible, I should say. But here, Topalov found an outrageous gambit idea, which I really like. For me, it's completely justified. I'm not sure it's completely sound, but I think it's justified. c5. It's a wonderful idea. Because White is behind in development, Black feels he's justified in opening up the centre, in opening up as many lines as possible, as quickly as possible. It's interesting here that his opponent, Bareev, played really quite modestly. He decided not to test this gambit at all. If you want to test the gambit, you could play pawn takes pawn. And then, well, pawn takes pawn is possible. And after bishop g5, that leads to normal variations by transposition. But there's also queen takes pawn. That's possible. And is knight takes pawn possible? I think so. I hope I'm not hanging any pieces here. Or White can try pawn takes pawn here, en passant. There's so many captures in this position, it's extremely confusing. Actually, Black doesn't need to recapture. What about queen takes pawn? Is that possible? And you can tell I haven't really done my homework on this position. But yeah, Black's pieces are coming out very quickly. And of course, there's pawn takes pawn on e6, and then pawn takes pawn and all hell breaks loose. Although you could also play bishop takes pawn and simply use your leading development. Okay, bishop g5 was played, and after queen takes d5, an endgame was reached fairly quickly. Black doesn't have any problems here at all. Good development. And now Topalov went for the endgame. And he even managed to win this position, although it looks... Well, does Black have a little something here? Perhaps a slight lead in development. And that was enough to get something out of the position. So, gambit idea worked. How good is c5? I'm not sure. But I do like the reasoning behind it, you could say. Okay, here's another gambit idea against queen c2. So let's get to the starting position. Here we are, queen c2. And now castles is another of the standard moves here for Black. And White played a3. Incidentally, if you're a White player interested in playing this, then e4 is very interesting for White. But that's another story. But a3 is the standard move. And now, a pretty standard gambit, which actually hasn't been played too much, and I'm not quite sure why. I think it seems pretty good to me. b5. This is justified because white hasn't developed on the king side. Now what black is looking to do is gain control of d5, which helps control e4 as well. So for example, pawn to c5, not very bright, leaves this square unguarded. So bishop b7 looks very good. So white really has to take this. Otherwise positionally it's not very desirable for white. And now the idea is c6. Just crack open the lines as quickly as possible. Now remember, once the c-file opens, white's queen is at the end of it. So black is looking to gain more time by attacking the queen. Oops, we've leapt back a bit. Bishop g5 is a solid way to go. Not taking this pawn. Here's a quick example. Bareev against Anand. I think this is sensible for white because he's not trying to refute the gambit. He's doing a morphy. He's not accepting the pawn, but he is developing his pieces very freely, very naturally, and not running into many problems in the opening. Typical Bareev, actually. A solid player. And yeah, we had a curious little trade here, and the position looks pretty equal to me. So bishop g5, a sensible move, but not a refutation of the gambit. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. So white is now pawn up, but he's going to have difficulties in completing his development. Okay, he went for b4 here, but after bishop a6, this move again, white has problems. e3, okay, we trade of course, and that means that it's going to take white longer to bring the king to safety. And I think black's moves flow pretty naturally, connecting the rooks. So check, and a5, so it's just opening more lines on the queen side. And the pieces flood in, gaining time against the queen, and knight e4. And you can see that black has tremendous activity for the pawn. And that's all you want as black, really. Okay, the pawn comes back, and black still has a lead in development, and this is beautiful. Actually, let's go through to the finish. Why not? Because there's a rather nice ending to the game. And white is really tied up. It's like black started the middle game before white was out of the opening, so no wonder he's had time to get these impressive rooks on the 7th rank. And now king h7. That's a very crafty waiting move. Is this position Zugzwang? It might be, actually. White is very short of moves. Could well be Zugzwang. Black is just waiting. Or maybe time pressure, I'm not sure. Anyway, after this move, white resigned because his queen is trapped. I wonder if black could have done that earlier. Maybe. Anyway, convincing victory. Once again, I'm not saying that this gambit is a forced win for black. I just wanted to show the kind of possibilities that occur if white is too greedy and doesn't have his head screwed on. Why do these gambits work against queen c2? Because of the backward development on the king side. So it's worth watching out for. If you feel your opponent's slow in some way with bringing their pieces out, then by all means sacrifice a pawn. Why not? Go for it. In the next clip we have another example where white's queen wanders out at a very early stage of the game and black seeks to exploit that.